How's it going? Dave here, and today I'm joined with my good friend Joel, and today we're going to be giving advice to people who are joining a band for the first time. We're going to be giving some tips that you should probably follow based on our experience. So how about, Joel, you quickly introduce yourself to everyone and tell everyone what you're all about.
Hi everyone, my name is Joel. I am a pianist and composer. I run my own band called Fractions with a K, and I've recently put out a solo single called Avalanche. I've been starting and running my own bands for years since I was about 14, and I feel that me and David have a lot of experience with all the behind the scenes stuff that goes into running a band successfully, and I feel like we can pass on some of that knowledge and wisdom and hopefully give you some good pointers to make your first band or the band you're joining more successful.
This is more aimed towards people starting their first band, but I think if you're experienced with being in bands already and you want to get some more tips for a new band that you're potentially joining, then this will definitely help out as well. So I guess we should get on to our first tip. And our first tip would be to do it for your own enjoyment and play the music that you love.
100%. Being in a band it's hard work, and it's a big commitment that it's so worthwhile, but only if you're going to enjoy it. So don't pick a genre and say, oh, let's do that because it'll be easy, right? Because you if it's easy but your heart's not in it, you will get bored, and then you end up wasting other people's time. You want to play the songs that you're going to enjoy the most to make it worthwhile. It's very simple and it kind of obvious, but
it's definitely an obvious one, but like it's just very true. Like even if you're into like some obscure like jazz grind death weird stuff, then like just do that, because you're gonna have a whole lot more fun than if you were just doing like something where you were compromising.
For sure. I think there may be quite a lot of young musicians out there who say, maybe they love like really technical death metal, but they're not proficient enough to play it yet. So there may be a gap between their kind of ability level and the music they want to play, the ability level they need to get to.
Sure.
So in that case, don't give up. Just practice. Learn tons of songs on your own. And then hopefully find like-minded musicians who enjoy the sort of stuff you want to play, and build it from the ground upwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that's all that really needs to be said about that point, to be honest. I think, just do what you love and don't really compromise, because you'll end up just kind of losing your love for it. So our second point would be to have clear communication with your band members, and I think this is a really essential and critical one, to be honest. So do you have any things that spring to mind when you think about communication with other band members?
Absolutely. I've made so many mistakes when it comes to this sort of thing, like not communicating clearly enough, or just not being on the same page as other bandmates. And it leads to frustration when people don't take it as seriously as others.
Absolutely.
It can be tricky to get rid of people if they're not putting the effort in to commit properly. But that's why it's so important to, at the beginning, you have to have honest conversations with your bandmates and agree on like, how seriously are we going to take this? Is this like a super professional band? Are we going to drop everything and go for it? Is this we gig on weekends, or we gig every now and then, or is it just a fun passion project? Are you going to play covers? Are you going to play originals? There's no right or wrong answer there, but the important thing is that you got to agree and be on the same page and then commit to that. And if you can't, then you need to maybe just be honest with your bandmates and say, look, life's got in the way. I can't commit at the moment. You should probably find someone else, rather than stay in the band for too long whilst half committing, because that can be very frustrating for the other members.
Sure. And I've actually found that, like me personally, I kind of like, my expectations are like too high. Like I dream a bit too big, I think. which I don't think is a bad thing. But like when I like bring all these ideas to my band and everything, they're like, "What? Like we're still a local band. Like we're not going to play like Wembley Stadium tomorrow." Like, so I've actually like once I've communicated with my band, I've actually brought my kind of expectations of everything down a little bit, which I think is quite a good thing. Yeah, yeah, and like once you've got like a common goal, and kind of common expectations, everything runs a lot smoother. And sometimes when like you're in a band with like really good friends of yours, it's really hard to have conversations when kind of like people are not pulling their weight or they're not doing what's expected of them. But it's so much better than building up resentment for them and then it all kind of blowing up at one moment where it just gets too much.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more with that, because if you set your goals too high, and there is nothing wrong with dreaming big. We all dream big, and I think you should. But
Yeah,
if you dream like crazy, unrealistic big, you're only setting yourself up for disappointment. And you want to set yourself goals that you can achieve. Whether that's, play some local gigs, play a gig outside of your hometown, or play a festival, or put out an EP, or put out an album, or whatever. Just make sure your goals are realistic, so you're not setting yourself up to be disappointed when you're unable to reach them.
exactly. What's the saying? A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step.
I like that.
So, yeah. So yeah, cool. What else could you put into communication? I think
Chat
that's
regularly.
Yeah,
Same
definitely.
in regular communication. If you've asked your bandmate to do something, or you've been asked to do something, and you haven't finished it yet, that's okay. Just keep talking to them. Ask them how they are. Ask them how they're getting on. Be like, yeah, I'm halfway through it, or I'm a quarter of the way through it. Just keeping people updated on the regular is way better than just waiting for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and not saying anything until the final thing is done.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that frustrates me a lot when people just don't communicate what's going on. Like, I don't mind if like things are going slow, but just not knowing where things are at is something that really frustrates me. I don't know if that's the same for other people, but yeah, I think that's quite important.
For sure. All
Yeah.
right. Point 3. Shall we get on to rehearsal etiquette?
Yes, definitely. This is another big one, and actually, I might have to call out some of my band members on some of this stuff. So this will be fun.
Oh, this will indeed. I remember a few years ago we were rehearsing at Pirate Studios, and there's a little video of me, and I lost my temper because I won't name names, but they were taking so long to. It was only like a 2 or 3 hour rehearsal, and there there was just so much messing around in the warm up, and it had already taken half an hour to set up, and I wanted to get cracking with the main
Yeah.
stuff. And I think there's a little video of me on Facebook somewhere going, right, shut the up. I'm done. Stop it right now.
Oh my god, I might have to go digging for that and place it in here.
Yeah, I'll have a look for it.
Awesome. Yeah. I think
Obviously, obviously you don't want to lose your temper in rehearsals. You want to avoid that situation from happening in the first place. So let's start from the beginning of a rehearsal, David. How
yeah,
early should you show up for a rehearsal?
you should show up before the scheduled time, I think, because like one, sometimes if the room's available, they'll let you in early, and two, I think the time you've set for your rehearsal is when you should start rehearsing. Do you know what I mean? Rather than when you should arrive.
Yeah, ideally, if you can, get there about half hour before, just to
Yeah.
help with loading everything in. Loading in and setting up can really eat into the valuable time, and that's the reason that you've paid money to be there, is to get your tunes sounding tight and play music. No one books rehearsals so they can spend half of it loading in and setting up gear and stuff. So if you can get there early, and fingers crossed you can actually get into the room early, if it's occupied, you can save some time. So yeah, don't be
Something,
late.
yeah, absolutely. Something on the whole setting up. a little cool exercise you can do as a band is to practice your changeovers. Like have one practice session where like you're not going to do much music and you're just going to do like gig stuff. But one of the things you can do is like try and do a changeover or like set up as quickly as possible and time it and see if you can get better each time. And that'll just give you more time in rehearsals, but also make you a better band to people at a gig because you're not wasting time. Just a little side
100%.
tangent there.
Yeah.
But yeah, other rehearsal things. Make sure you learn your parts beforehand.
Yes.
Like,
Rehearsal is not the place to learn the parts. You learn them outside of rehearsal, and then you practice them in the rehearsal. Like, you should be able to play whatever song you're trying to nail. You should have learned it already. And then when you're in rehearsal, the idea is to just get things razor tight, get everything feeling good. You can tweak sound and stuff, but it's not the time to be learning your parts. Just last little point on rehearsal then. I think plan what you're going to work on beforehand, so everyone's got an idea of what you're going to be focusing on, so they can focus their practice time effectively. And just have fun, get it grooving, get it as tight as you can.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what it's all about.
Point number 4.
I think so. Yeah. So that is quality over quantity. Yes.
Oh yes, this is a principle that I
This is something
adhere
I
by.
strongly agree with.
Yeah. So when you're starting out, but to be honest, I think it applies to a lot of bands who maybe have been playing for years. If you are you've got a support slot, I personally think it's better to nail like a short set. I'm talking like 22 minutes, but absolutely nail it, and get off stage early. No promoter is ever going to be like, hey, we wanted you to play for half an hour and you played for 25 minutes. They're going to be thankful for the extra time. The next band is always going to be thankful. So promoters are only going to get annoyed if you're going over, especially if it's a support slot and there are bands on after you. So trim your set down, trim the fat, focus on absolutely nailing just a 20-ish minutes set, I guess.
Yeah.
It depends on how old you are and what's the gig setting that you're playing. Because if it's like a school concert, you may be only allowed to do one song or whatever. But if you're playing local venues, just short and sweet. Get to the point. Get off stage.
That's it. Yeah. You want to leave people wanting more. That's the main purpose of it. But like, honestly, I've seen bands where like I've honestly like thought they were really awesome, but just because they've been allowed to play for 45 minutes, it's just oh man, it's just gone on forever, and then you end up just not liking it. So just keep it short and sweet. Like
most people's attention spans, I reckon, for a new band that they haven't heard of, will be 5 to 15 minutes if you're lucky. So you've really got to grab them in that time. If you can keep everyone in the room for 20 minutes, I think you've done a great job. Once you venture beyond 25 minutes over to 30, 35, I think that's the point that even if you're good, you risk losing people unless you can really wow them and twist your set in an unexpected direction.
That's it.
So think about your set list as well. Think about the flow. Are you going to have an introduction? How do the tracks link together? If you can possibly avoid it, I think try and avoid awkward silences between songs. Would you agree, David?
I'd agree. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I would also say try and the main things people remember are the beginning and the end. The middle is kind of just a bit of a mush. So make sure your second best song is at the beginning and then your best song is at the end, with the most energy. And I think the middle, try and kind of bring some ups and downs, like make it a bit of a roller coaster. But in terms of awkward silences, you want to avoid them as much as possible. What we like to do, my band, is play our first 2 songs back to back without a pause. It's like we finish the song, dun dun dun, it just goes straight into the next song. I think that's really important because people can get bored And if there's a gap in between songs, it's an excuse for someone to go and grab a beer or something. So if you just stop that excuse from happening, then people will stick around for longer.
Yeah, don't give them a chance. Make it a one continuous experience.
Exactly.
Cool. Okay. Point number
Nice.
5. So, for point number 5, this is mainly aimed at the younger musicians who, you know, are just kind of starting out. But I think it's a really valuable skill to get to grips with learning how to use a DAW. So, if you've never used one before, start on GarageBand because it's so easy to use, and it really gives you the foundational skills of learning how to record yourself, learning how to play to a click and organize MIDI, and setting up tracks and layering stuff. And it just is a great starting point.
Absolutely. And I think recording yourself is an essential skill anyway, because you'll hear things when you're recording that you won't notice about your playing when you're just in the moment. Like you'll notice little inconsistencies in the timing, and like as a guitar player, you'll notice like open strings that are kind of ringing out that you don't notice when you're playing, as well as like your tone and everything. It's kind of a bit like in a mix, your guitar tone is going to sound completely different on its own. So like on its own, your guitar, if you turn the bass up, turn the treble up, like scoot the mids out, like it's going to sound fat and like, but the guitar is a mid-range instrument. So like in a mix, that's just going to sound horrific. So you want to make sure you've got the tone that suits the mix rather than you playing alone in your bedroom. So recording yourself is going to be really essential in doing that.
Yeah, it's also a great way to practice. What I like to do is I've got the whole set list, all the demos, bar the piano that I'm playing, so I can play along live and I can hear everything else, all the backing track layers, all the bass, all the drums, and just play the whole set all in one go and just drilling that over and over again. One, it's a lot of fun, and two, it's like the best way to prepare for a live situation because you get used to the flow of each song. So yes, record yourself, listen back to it. It's
record yourself. Yeah, very, very important. And you learn skills that like will be useful in the studio as well when you get to recording. So
yeah, when it comes to playing to a click, I find a lot of people will slow down and speed up. Their tempo will fluctuate without them realizing, and they find playing to a click extremely frustrating. It's like a necessary evil. But do you have any advice for people who are finding that tough?
Oh, that is a difficult one. I think like with my guitar students and everything, like I can tell them what the particular thing is, but like it's different for everybody. So the only thing I can say that is definitely going to work is just keep practicing, like, and you'll get better over time. I think
Don't give
like
up.
there's no secret around it really.
Yeah.
But yeah, listen back to yourself, and you'll hear the things that you need to work on.
Yeah, I ask because if you're rehearsing with other musicians and you don't have much experience of that, you've only really been playing on your own for a long time. It's quite common for timing issues to go unnoticed, and so I guess try to first of all tap your foot along to what you're playing and try and keep a steady pulse. Another little piece of advice would be, even if you find playing along to a click too frustrating or too hard, just listen to the click for a little bit before you start to at least get the speed in the right sort of place, and just try and be aware of it while you're playing.
I do have a really good tip, actually. You've reminded me. Get your body involved. When you can get your body involved, your playing will move with the motion of your body. So it's a weird tip, but it really works. Like I'll either get one of my students to start tapping their foot, as you said, along with the click, and that usually just helps them get more in time. And if that doesn't, I'll make them move their body a bit more, like really kind of feel what's going on, and that really, really helps.
Oh yeah, get that chicken head bop going.
That's it.
Feel that groove. All right,
so
cool.
Yeah, recording yourself, very important. Learn how to use a DAW, digital audio workstation. That's what it stands for. I've always used Reaper because Reaper's cool, but I've never used GarageBand, so I can't really say. But
that's where I started when I was, I don't know, 13, 14. That's
sure.
Around that sort of age. And then I moved up to its kind of father figure, Logic Pro,
Yeah.
which I've stuck with. It's pretty good. Does the job.
So I've used it a fair bit. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does the job.
Cool. Okay.
Cool.
Point number 6.
Yes.
Okay. So this kind of ties into point number 2 a little bit, but if someone isn't pulling their weight and that's not going to change, then it is best to part ways and look for someone who can commit. But this is easier said than done a lot of the time, because being in a band, it really strengthens, well, it should theoretically strengthen your friendships with your bandmates, because you are bonded. It's a serious bond when you're in a band together, and it can be kind of painful to part ways with people, especially if you've been in a band for a long time. But life circumstances change, and you've got to adapt to keep going. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So sometimes these conversations are sadly necessary.
Yeah. I will say though, sometimes some people are not aware that they're not pulling that weight, and if you make them aware of it and tell them the exact things, this goes back to clear communication, the exact things that they need to do to kind of stay in the band, then they will like pull their weight. So I think it's worth giving someone a last chance if you just clearly explain everything. It's a hard conversation to have especially if they're like a really good friend of yours, because you're like, these are all the things that are wrong about you.
Yeah,
but,
it's tricky to word it. You have to word it very carefully and just be kind of clear and to the point, and just keep it about the business stuff.
Exactly.
Try not to get too emotional. Yeah, and I'm fully for clear communication, obviously, but giving people another chance. There are downsides to being too cutthroat about it as well, because people might see you as this kind of dictator figure, which I think I've definitely been teased about by my band at certain points. Being too much of a perfectionist. It's a tricky line I've found over the years. It's a balance, because I want to have every band I've created, and I've wanted to do everything as professionally as possible and get things sounding as good as they possibly can. But at the same time, me being a perfectionist can frustrate my bandmates. So it's a balance.
I feel that. Yeah, I feel it. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. I don't think there's much more to say about that unless you've got anything.
No, I think
No,
we've kind of covered it.
Yeah. So final point.
Okay, point number 7, gig etiquette. So bring your own gear, watch the other bands. It's pretty simple, really. Don't be a dick.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's very simple and it goes a long way. Like at every gig you play, like there's probably going to be like some sort of group chat where the gear situation is talked about. So what backline is being provided. So you should know exactly what you need to bring to the gig, and there's not really any excuses for like borrowing stuff. You like obviously you can borrow stuff from other band members as long as like you tell them in advance. And,
yeah, you want to give them as much notice as possible. You want to avoid situations where you've got half an hour, 10 minutes before your set, and it's a mad panic, and you're like begging other guitarists to borrow their amp. Like, they're not going to like that. So if you really have to, if you've got no way of bringing your own gear, if you can't drive or whatever, then talk to these people, give them as much notice as possible, maybe offer to throw them a little bit of money just to sweeten the deal as a kind of thank you and a kind of respectful gesture. I think that would go a long way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think what else? So that's bringing your own gear, watching the other bands, just a super important thing to do. Like, I think other bands notice if you're one of those bands who don't watch the other bands. I know my band certainly notices if there's one particular band who doesn't watch all the bands but expects everyone else to watch them. And we
Word
actually,
travels, doesn't it?
what was that?
Word travels around the scene.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. And actually, we'll have a go at each other in our band group chat. If someone's outside while a band's playing, we'll like come inside and watch the band, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
The other thing, don't be a dick. Like, obvious, but like, yeah. I mean, being nice is probably the most important thing.
So, David, have you ever participated in a Battle of the Bands competition?
Yes, I have. And there's nothing good about it whatsoever. Yeah.
So have I. I remember one back in Southampton before Fractions was called Fractions. We had a terrible, terrible name called, shall I say it? Yeah, go on then. It was Talon with 3 L's, and the 3 L's made a claw
Nice.
in the logo. Oh, yeah. It was terrible. No one knew how to pronounce it. I remember we did a Battle of the Bands competition at the Hobbit. This must have been 6-7 years ago. One of our first few gigs. And we were playing at 2:00 in the afternoon in the back of a little pub. Very cool pub. Very awesome little venue. Got a lot of time for that place. We were pretty terrible. But at the time, I thought we were better than we were because we were playing kind of complicated, fancy, progressive metal music. But we didn't get through. And I remember feeling a bit miffed at the time because the bands that did get through were playing much simpler sort of music. But to be fair, they executed it well. But the main point, Battle of the Bands competitions on the whole, music shouldn't be a competition, right? They're stupid. It's so often like, oh, surprise, surprise, it's the judge's mate's band that win.
Yeah.
Don't do them. Don't get involved. Just spin them off.
Yeah, that's like my band Callista, we did do one, but we fully knew that we couldn't do the final. So we literally just treated it as a gig. So I guess if you want to just play a gig, but I guess would you even do a Battle of the Bands even if like you weren't taking it as a competition? Because you're still going to get judged, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't regret doing it necessarily because I think it was a learning experience, that gig. Even if you play badly, if you learn something and you do it better the following time, then it's not completely a waste of time. I'd just be wary of taking those sort of competitions too seriously, and do not let it affect your confidence if you don't get through, because music is subjective. Music isn't a sport. It's not a competition. Everyone's at different kind of levels and stages in their musical development and careers. And I just think like pitting them against each other in a tournament sort of thing is just not the right way to go about things.
It's a bit gross. Yeah, absolutely. And I've actually had to put together a Battle of the Bands thing before. And it's just like when a band that you think should have like gone through doesn't, you're like, oh, I wish I never put this whole thing together. It's just like, it's not good.
Just be wary of them as a general rule.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. I think that's everything we wanted to talk about, unless you have anything else that has sprung to your mind.
Watch School of Rock. That was amazingly inspirational, feel-good film. I watched that when I was like 10, and then that led me to start my first band when I was about 13, 14. We were called Crisis Code. We played a local music festival called South Park Gardens a couple of times. No, once, I think. And we were pretty terrible, but I have no regrets. And funnily enough, someone actually emailed me because we uploaded our tracks to MySpace. Remember MySpace?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
so I got an email from a random fan saying, "Hey, I loved your Crisis Code songs. Can you upload them to Spotify?"
Wow.
That
That's
came
mad.
through like a month ago. So weird. I was just like,
Yeah,
"What?
yeah, yeah.
What?" Because they were bad. But you know, you learn from each step of the journey. So yeah, watch School of Rock for inspiration if you need a bit of inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great film. Yeah. Nice one. Well, it's been great having you on the YouTube channel, Joel. I
Absolute
really
pleasure,
enjoyed it.
mate.
Yeah, yeah, it's been great. Do you want to plug your stuff one more time before we put things to a close?
Sure. So I have just put out a single called Avalanche. I teamed up with Dave Klussman, who played guitars and produced the whole track. It's atmospheric tech metalcore. So if that sounds like your sort of thing, head over to my YouTube channel and check it out. Cheers.
Fantastic. Nice one, dude. And I'll catch you soon.
See you later, mate.